Today's video is a bit of a throwback. What you're looking at here is the 2013 NECA Toys quarter scale Mark VII battle damaged Iron Man. And this was one of NECA's quarter scale figures that excelled in some ways and in my opinion utterly failed in others. This was released for about $100 when it came out, which is pretty much the same price as all of NECA's other quarter scale figures even to this day. And the biggest thing about this particular NECA figure is that it comes with a head sculpt of Robert Downey Jr. instead of the Iron Man Mark VII helmet. So let's start things off by starting with the head and then moving down to about the waist. So this quarter scale figure is 18 inches tall. It is easily the largest figure in my collection and he has a fair bit of heft to him. We'll get into all those details in a moment, but let's take a look at that head sculpt. Now the head sculpt is pretty much dead on Robert Downey Jr. and NECA did a very good job at that. And the weird thing is, as good as this head sculpt is, this figure was still disappointing to quite a lot of people, myself included, because it didn't come with an actual Mark VII battle damaged helmet as an alternative head swap. That would have easily made this figure absolutely phenomenal. But what we do have here is a pretty darn good likeness of Robert Downey Jr. from the facial hair, the expression on his face and the shape of his eyes, and even the sculpt of his hair. It's really great. Of course, with the added dirt effects and a little bit of blood going on his forehead, that really makes this particular head sculpt pop out. And if you had other Iron Man figures in the quarter scale, standing this guy next to him or next to them would look pretty cool because you get to see the man behind the mask and with the mask on. Now the battle damage aspect goes all the way through the entire armor. What we have here is the traditional red and gold, but it's just been scuffed up with like some dry brushing and a little bit of silver. It just looks dirty and tattered and just absolutely devastated. I believe this is from the Battle for New York. And this armor looks really good. I love the little chips of paint that you can see right about there and all the little scuffs of black and silver that are brushed throughout. Now for the arc reactor that's right there in the center, this figure has some light up action. It takes some of those little circle batteries and on the back of him there's this little switch. So when I flip this switch on, you can see that the arc reactor actually lights up. I'm going to turn it off again and then turn it back on. So that's pretty cool. And that's not the only place where you get to see lights. Now, even though he doesn't come with any kind of a different head sculpt, he did come with interchangeable hands. I don't know where those fisted hands are right now, but when I put him together, I wanted him to have these open hands, and he has these open hands and they also have lights in them, and there are these switches on his wrist that when you flip the switch it makes the lights come on. Now these batteries have long since died, so these lights in his hands don't come on anymore until I change the battery, but they are there, and it makes for a really cool looking display, especially at night when you have these lights turned on and it looks like he's just standing guard over your entire collection, over your living room, wherever you may happen to have him. We turn him over on the back side and you see that we're getting pretty much more of the same, but there are these additional little flaps that can open up. And although it escapes me exactly what these were for, I'm not sure if these were for like rocket thrusters or brakes or something like that, but whatever it was for, it looks pretty cool. I think that it looks better when you just kind of have this open like this when it's on display, because it just makes it look like there's more going on with this particular figure. Now, as you can see, I'm about to get into one of the things that is a real letdown about this figure, and it's that he is incredibly hard to stand up by himself. Very hard to stand up by himself. You know, just simply turning him around the way that I had him before, he's still not standing. I had to put a doll stand, connect him to a doll stand in order to get him to stand, because despite all the articulation and all the different joints and stuff that you can get with this particular Iron Man figure, he just cannot stand very well by himself, which makes him frankly a hazard if you got him in like a DTOF cabinet or just somewhere where he can fall and do some damage to himself or something else, because he has an incredibly hard time standing up by himself. But let's just forget about that for a second and let's navigate from the waist down. from the waist down is pretty much more of the same. Some of that same scuffy paint, some of that same dry brushing, and of course the color scheme stays the same all the way throughout. But let's just take a look at some of the articulation in the legs that you can get with this Iron Man figure. And I am not going to be able to get him to stand up after this, so let's just get right into it. Now, these legs here, there's a lot of range of motion here. So we can get the legs to bend about that much, and he can move his legs out about this much. You know, not bad for a figure of this particular scale. And it moves out to the side, not too much. And you can rotate it as well. The feet is pretty interesting because it has this hinge right here and it hinges pretty far, but this foot seems a bit frozen. But on the left foot, you can just see like how much I can hinge that all the way down. But it doesn't really seem to help all that much because, like I said, he can't really stand up all that well by himself, unfortunately. Let's turn him over to the back side. And you see we got a lot more of the same going on there. And, you know, just moving him around, I finally got him to stand up by himself. I think it goes without saying that this figure is extremely photogenic, especially if you can get him into a pose where he can stand up and not fall over and destroy everything that's underneath him. But this is NECA that we're talking about, and NECA has always been very good when it comes to paint and sculpt and detail and really capturing the likeness of a character. And this Mark VII Iron Man really is no different. The biggest drawbacks with this guy, of course, as I said 1,000,001 times, is the fact that he's hard to stand and that he doesn't come with an alternative head. Mostly the Mark VII battle damaged helmet. If that were included, that would have been phenomenal, and this particular figure would have been a must-have in your display. So it's because of those reasons I feel that this is probably going to go down as being one of the more disappointing quarter scale NECA figures from the Avengers line, and that's really a shame because he really does look great. And if you put him next to a regular Mark VII battle damaged Iron Man, it'll really just set it off and it'll really pop. So for that, I kind of feel like this is more of a secondary get. If you have the other figures from this line, I would just recommend get another Iron Man and just kind of have this one sort of being in the background. This is not the primary one that you want to have. But if you got yourself a really good stand, by all means, you can find it on the third-party market for about 70 to 80 bucks. I got this from Big Bad Toy Store maybe about 2.5 years ago, and fortunately I only spent about 60 bucks for it. So that was pretty awesome, and this is something that I have dug out of my closet because I'm afraid to put him on display for reasons that you already know. So that's it. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'm Jeremy, and I'll talk to you later.